Come, let us explore how chasing calm, ironically enough, could cause chaos. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The question begins concisely, advice please, and then continues, or perhaps elaborates. I'm practicing Buddhism, and I would really like to get myself to a point where I can stay in that meditative state all day. The trouble I'm having is the moment I get up and do anything, I just completely snap out of it. Has anyone got any tips for this? Or could maybe point me to some videos that could help? Come, let us begin with a bit of the old broad brushstrokes. Come, let us discuss the topic of chasing states. Way back in the 80s, the 1980s, when the crust of the earth was still cooling, I was taught the gospel of neuro-linguistic programming. I was taught from, I sat at the feet of the great orator, quote unquote, great orator, Tony Robbins, who taught us the importance that we can choose whatever state we experienced. And by simply giving him lots of money, learning his techniques, and then applying them, we too could could experience any state we desired. And that sounded good to me until I noticed his voice and his explanation that his voice was so thrashed because he'd often sit in a car with the windows rolled up, screaming affirmations. I'm sure Tony Robbins is a lovely human being, but I don't want to traverse his path. I do not wish to traverse the path of Yang. I do not wish to traverse the path of being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. That doesn't speak to me. I want to traverse the path of Yin. I want to traverse the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. And I think that if you found me on the internet, you'd probably feel the same way. But we're in good company, because so did Gautama, who would be nicknamed the Buddha. According to the Buddha, our problem isn't failure to manifest or contrive a specific state. Our problem is that we are forever fleeing and chasing. So let's put this in the perspective of the Four Noble Truths. You can ask any biologist and they will assure you that there are stressors. Some are circumstantial, some are physical, some are interpersonal, and some are mental. We evolved mechanisms to deal with stressors. Simply put, to shove and reach and cling and the like. Now, that's great. We are wired to do that. That's not the problem. So then what is the liberation the Buddha offers us? It's not liberation from the presence of these primal survival drives. Rather, it's liberation from the tyranny of those exact same survival drives over our choices and utterances and deeds. You see, we have not one but two reward systems in our underbrain. The first is dopamine oriented, the second is oxytocin oriented. The first rewards for anything, for procreation and anything that supports living long enough to procreate. And the second rewards for cooperation. The first rewards with fleeting pleasure. The second rewards with fulfillment. And if we are stuck in our survival mode all the time, there will be no room for fulfillment. The solution the Buddha offers is simple. The solution is to practice the Eightfold Path. And here's the cool thing. The liberation the Buddha offers us is simply mastery of this Eightfold Path, getting so good at it that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Now, allow me to remind you of the 7 enlightenment factors. The first one is mindfulness. We get to notice whatever comes up, whether whatever comes up is a sight, or a sound, or a sensation, or a flavor, or a scent. Regardless of whether it comes up is an emotion, or an intention, or a thought, or a memory, or an imagining. We are wired, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, to perceive entire spectrum of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. And our job is not to hide from what we feel or put a spin on what we feel, but be completely vulnerable, not to be defensive, but to be curious. The Buddha promises that by walking this path, a litmus test of our journey on this path is our energy and our joy. If we are forever hiding from what we're feeling, if we're forever trying to manipulate what we feel, we won't feel energetic and we won't feel joyful. Now, the cool thing is, even though mindfulness is hardwired into our sympathetic nervous system, and the key that unlocks our sympathetic nervous system is just our inhalation. Similarly, just as the opposite of inhalation is exhalation, and the opposite of our sympathetic nervous system is our parasympathetic nervous system, just by cooperating with our breath, we can experience a semblance of tranquility. We can notice that that which we perceive during inhalation, as we relax during our exhalation, begins to feel less tangible, less permanent, less defining. So as we breathe in, we notice. As we breathe out, we release and relax. We apply this to whatever comes up. Whatever comes up. Whether it's a perception, an emotion, an intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining. We always apply noticing and releasing to our inhalation and our exhalation. Let us explore the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, right view. The Buddha gave many discourses. One of his most famous discourses is mindfulness with inhalation and exhalation. Anapanasati, if you really dig Pali, the language of Pali. In that, he teaches that the key to wisdom is simply a awareness, a vulnerability to change. We don't have to believe it. We don't have to theorize it. We just have to be vulnerable to it. And here's the irony. Whether we want to or not, whether we try to or not, we can't help but notice change. As we sit in meditation, we can't help but notice changes in what we see and what we hear and what we feel and what we taste and what we smell. We can't help but notice changes in what we emote and what we intend. Boy, I'll tell you, watch a political debate, you'll feel some strong intentions. This is the time of year for that. Try as you might, you can't help but notice that different thoughts come and different thoughts go, and that's how our brains have evolved to work, and that's not bad. That's simply how it is. Sit in meditation, you can't help but notice memories come, memories go, emotions come, emotions go, imaginings come, imaginings go. So, in the midst of all this impermanence, maintaining one state is not only an impossibility. To strive to do it would shove us into the path of Yang, into the path of the Buddha's foolish cousin Devadatta, into the path of being rigid and controlling. And we'd be in good company. 90% of humanity is right there. But the Buddha encouraged us to traverse the path of Yin, to traverse his path of being flexible and laid back. It's kind of like this. I don't know if you're a big movie geek. I'm a movie geek. But if you ever watched the movie The Big Lebowski, you can be like the Big Lebowski or we can be like the dude. I'd rather be like the dude than the Big Lebowski. Now, yes, the Big Lebowski had, great wealth, but he was pretty miserable. And so Buddha's calling us to be less like the Big Lebowski and more like the dude. If you'd like to be like the dude, then why don't you join me with some chanting and some meditation? Where am I? Here we go. So let's practice together after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you won't have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now I think it could be great fun if together we played with the latest iteration of All Good One's Easy Meditation. Remember when we were kids in junior high school during PE, they would first have us warm up, then we would do the main activity, and then we do some sort of a cool down. That's what we're going to do right now. Let's begin with wisdom's warm-up, remembering that the view of reality that supports letting go is the first fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. Please chant with me. Rather than indulge or controlling tendencies with the follies of active visualization, emotion, magic, and belief, we could just recite these wise words in harmony with our breathing and allow our subconscious to do the heavy lifting. Let us sidestep the rigidity that confuses metaphors for statements literal, and relax into the flexibility that savors the chance explaining metaphors as similes. together. May we see how all circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. So, the Buddha taught there were 4 bases of enlightenment: the mental, the interpersonal, the physical, and the circumstantial. We're going to use the verb melting as a metaphor of impermanence. We're going to use the verb absorb as a metaphor of interdependence. And just as foresters sometimes fight fire with fire, we're going to use self-centeredness to transcend self-centeredness, which I think is delightfully ironic. So let's take all these words and condense them down to just 6 syllables that we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. Together. May we feel how all bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communication or speech. May we hear how all interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. May we feel how all perceiving, emoting, intending, thinking, recalling, and imagining minds could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into our vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be not graspable to the hand. Having completed wisdom's warm-up, we now make our way to the 7th and 8th folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, mindfulness and meditation. What is the most efficient way of practicing mindfulness? Why, simply to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. Doing so induces our cerebral cortex to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. The same sympathetic nervous system that is ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord, and which has evolved to support perception that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. We can notice all manner of things. As mentioned during the opening lesson, we can notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Now that could seem a trifle overwhelming. What are we to do with all that stuff that we notice? The answer to that is meditate. What's the most efficient way to meditate? To silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. Doing so induces the cerebral cortex to actively participate with our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us both physically relax as well as mentally release. So, ideally, it would be grand if we could sit together in meditation for an hour. Now, I don't know about you, but I am the poster boy for neurodivergence. So I've had to work out a bunch of hacks. And that led me to modify a bunch of ancient practices that I've nicknamed Bengali crease counting, because if I called it Mudra Anu Yoga, most people wouldn't know what I was saying. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a relatively easy way of keeping track of let's just go over here. Keeping track of 4 collections of 12 sets of 12 rounds. On our right hand, we're going to count 12 rounds. And on our left hand, we're going to count 12 sets of those 12 rounds. And on the knuckles of our hands, we're going to count the 4 collections. Now, that's a lot of information. So, quick like a bunny, I'm going to tap button 4 in the most loving way possible and show you my hands. So, first things first. How do we count to 12? First of all, what's a round? A round is 1 inhalation and 1 exhalation. So, during our inhalation, while silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, we can advance the tip of our right thumb. So together, let's practice this ease. So, congratulations, now you can count to 12 on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb. But how do we count 12 sets of this? On our left hand. And once again, beginning with the little finger, and this will be the first set of 12 rounds, and then the second set, and then the third set, and then the fourth set, and so on. And you count 12 sets of 12 rounds, and that'll bring you up to the 15-minute mark, just about. A little more, a little less, depending on how fast you breathe. So how do we count 4 collections of 12 sets of 12 repetitions? That's where our knuckles come in. So to keep track of our first collection, we're going to rest the tip of our left little finger upon the great knuckle to the base of our right little finger. And then we put our hands in our lap, left hand on the bottom, right hand on the top, both palms facing the ceiling or the sky if you're outside. And there you go. And after that first collection of 12 sets of 12 repetitions, you can move on to your ring finger, and then your middle finger, and then your index finger. Now you could throw down your smartphone and say, "Damn it, Lama Jigme, you oddly dressed fellow, how am I supposed to master this the first time?" And the answer is, you're not. No one masters anything the first time, including lovemaking. None of us were perfect the first time we did anything. But it's been my experience that if you hang out with me once every 12 hours, through the magic of YouTube, in a week or two, you'll master this. No big deal. Anyone can do it. I assure you, I'm not a Mensa candidate. I am not a Nobel laureate. I am not a genius. Anyone can do this stuff. If I can do it, you can do it. Now, ain't nothing to it but to do it. Yes, I cringe at that statement as well. May we see how all circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. May we feel how all bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communication or speech. May we hear how all interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. May we feel how all perceiving, emoting, intending, thinking, recalling, and imagining minds could be as impermanent and interdependent, as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into our vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be not graspable to the hand. Now let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of love. May all minds of all beings know be as peacefully enlightened as the mind of a real or imagined Buddha symbolized by a tikle one syllable seed or bija mantra. May all relationships or speech of all beings know be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddha speech symbolized by a multisyllabic mantra. May all bodies or forms of all beings know enjoy the beautiful health represented by a Buddha statuary, depicting the blissful body of a real or imagined Yadama archetype of enlightenment such as Kuntu Zangpo. May all circumstances or lots of all beings know have the safe fortune or boon as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land or Vanti. Now let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of impermanence and interdependence. Now, again, let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of love. All right. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Mimaziri Hum. 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 Om Ahum Benzo Guru Mima Zeri 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 Hum. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Maziri 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 Hum. Now, again, let us bring the four bases of mindfulness into the path of impermanence and interdependence. Now it's time for the compassionate cool down. Remember, the mental morality of kind intention is the second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The interpersonal morality of kind communication is the third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The physical morality of kind conduct is the fourth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The circumstantial morality of kind commerce is the fifth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.